Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is podcast number 2, and today we're going to be talking about the issues of mental health in this world today with coronavirus, but also in the industry in general. So here's part 1. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We've got podcast number 2, and today we are going to talk about mental health. And as usual, I have my partner in crime, Sundish Patel, on with me. Wave again, Sundish, like you do so well.
Hey, everybody. Chris, I don't know about your partner in crime. Maybe we're good for a couple misdemeanors, but that's probably all you and I are really good for.
A couple misdemeanors. All right. Fair enough. And then also with us, we have Dr. Rahul Sharma, who is a consultant, psychologist, musician, and speaker. He focuses on diversity, social justice, multiculturalism, individual and community health, violence against women, prevention, music, and healing. He's a consultant who trains police departments, theaters, and businesses of all kind. He was recently the keynote presenter at the annual Illinois Psychological Association convention and at the National Council of Schools of Professional Psychology. That's a mouthful. He is also co-chair of the Diversity and Equity Committee for the City of Chicago's Year of Music 2020 campaign. And his bio goes on and on and on. And if I were to read his whole bio, that's probably all we would do today. So welcome, Rahul. Appreciate you being here.
What's happening? So glad to be here.
So one of the things that we've talked about a lot in our various videos and such is that one of the challenges that we see in this industry is the psychological challenges that we encounter.
Absolutely.
Here, right? And certainly now we're in the midst of the big COVID-19 outbreak. And there's a lot of challenges with that, and people are really struggling with their whole world being upended. And I thought this would be a really good time to have a discussion about what are the psychological impacts of all of that. So Rahul, one of the things that we've seen, and we had Adam Voss on the last one, and he was talking about how he's just basically extremely neurotic to begin with, and now he's got bugs everywhere. Now there actually are bugs everywhere, and I think a lot of people are really facing a tremendous amount of anxiety around this outbreak. What are you seeing in your world, and what are you telling people who are feeling really anxious about what's happening right now?
Wow.
It's a big one, right?
It's such an important, it's a big one. You came in blazing. So I would say the first thing is really to remember to breathe, because this is real. It's unprecedented. As much as we try to absorb, I think it's hard for any of us to really try fathom how big this is. So I think as a reality check, just being, I keep saying this when I'm posting and sharing things on either Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, that it's important to be gentle with yourself. Like in a way, there's a comfort in saying, yes, it is okay to be freaking out right now. I mean, there are ways to get beyond it, and hopefully we'll get into some of that. But as a reality check, to say that, yes, these feelings are valid, and it's important to start from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an interesting point. I think, not being a psychologist, my inclination is just like, chill out, everybody. It's okay, but it's not okay. I mean, there's actually real reason to be afraid, and maybe it's about more validating those feelings than it is about dismissing them.
Yes, and so I quickly follow those things with to your point, a couple other things, which is, and yes, your feelings are valid. Yes, this is huge. We have reasons to be scared, and we will get through this. And the way we will get through this is by doing this together. and really to dig deep. And I think a lot of us have experienced this, have been fortunate enough to experience the best in people and how we come together in moments like this. But it can start with having empathy towards yourself. What I mean is, if there's a part of you that's freaking out, if there's a part of you that's you're really on edge, just be gentle with yourself. Be understanding and empathic towards that part of you that is sort of like acting out on anxiety or fear. Yeah. Then be gentle with each other, and I posted this recently and I just personal observation as well as my sort of wearing my professional hat. When one family member needs to be watching the news all the time and another family member is like, I need to escape. They're competing strategies, but they're both strategies to deal with the same thing. So what do we do when our strategies, even in our own household, are diametrically opposed to each other? We need to be gentle with each other, be empathic towards each other, and create some space for each other to do what we need to do and find a way to make it work.
It's funny. In my household today, I had an interesting scenario like that, right? We ran out of butter upstairs, and I'm like, oh, we're out of butter. And my wife said, don't say that. Don't say that. We have tons of butter downstairs. Don't ever say we're out of something until you check downstairs. It gives me tons of anxiety. I'm like, whoa. Yeah, I mean, and I get it. I mean, she's been shopping and trying to make sure that we have enough stuff to survive all this, and like she doesn't want to hear we don't have something, right? Because now it's impossible to get stuff. Right. So, I'm living what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things we talk about, we're kind of tech focused here, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we've talked about for some time here is that the industry we are in has sort of its unique problems, right? So the underlying base under which all this is happening now is sort of this just state of declining morale and increased pressures and all sorts of stuff. Sunish, you always talk about this, right? I mean, you see in the industry, describe what you see out there.
So I spend a lot of my time spending time with our customers. So a lot of exec CIO and CTO level middle management and a lot of the technical leaders from the customer side, vendors, partners, startups, a lot of their sales teams, a lot of their sales and engineering leadership, as well as some of the Silicon Valley leaders as well. And one of the things I feel like is the expectations have been really, really high. Customers are now being tasked to transform their business, making their company an IT organization, which sounds easy, but it's incredibly hard. And CIOs and CTOs are being tasked for this whole digital revolution, which is already challenging as it is. And now you have this whole COVID-19 thing that has creeped up on them. Then you have us on the vendor side. 5-6 years ago, I would say 70-80% of the account teams were making their number. Now I think it's about 20 to 30%. And the reason why I think that's super important is when sales and engineering teams aren't making their numbers, morale goes down. When morale goes down, productivity goes down. When productivity goes down, the customer experience is compromised. And that I've seen over and over, and that's real, and that's happening in our industry as well. So in general, I see all these macro level technology changes. People are dealing with it, and we're trying to figure out how to be competitive in this market and transform and change. But I think with all of that, it's all this anxiety has built up. If you look at the Blue Cross Blue Shield Health Index in every county in America, every single county in America, and I didn't believe it until a friend of mine showed me, major depression is the number one disease in every single county. So which tells me it's real, the analytics and the data are there, but culturally, I don't think we are there. Nobody, I talk to a lot of folks that will tell me and I'll tell them that, hey, man, this is hard and, this is a tough time in my life, not just because of work, but maybe it's because I have some of the personal issues that I do as well, whether it be, parents that are sick, or you got kids issues, or you're having a fight with your wife or whatever it might be. These are all real issues that we're all trying to deal with. And so I feel like the anxiety and depression in within our industry has been higher than it always has been. So with that being said, now with this COVID-19 situation, here's the way I see it. I hope there's people like you and me, Chris, who actually take advantage of this opportunity. And, we work a lot. And so hopefully this is a time for you and I to rethink, recalibrate, just refocus on our priorities. Are we doing the right things? Are we being the people that we want to be? Where does work really fit into our lives? What kind of husbands and fathers do you and I really want to be? But then there's going to be this other side too, where I'm worried because I think there's people that are already so stressed out. They're already trying their hardest, and even though they are succeeding, their companies are telling them that they're failing, which just adds to it. And so, with that all being said, I would love to get Rahul, your perspective on given these current dynamics. How can we help people prepare for what's imminent?
We're kind of hitting a breaking point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you articulate that so well, both sides of it. And I think both things are happening, and maybe speaking directly to the folks that are listening, watching, it starts with just paying attention to what's happening with you. The first step. Are you seeing this as an opportunity to press the reset button? Are you seeing this as, hey, I have to close my office for 2 weeks, and now I'm having conversations with my kids or with my partner that I've never had before, or me and my coworkers are actually reaching out to each other in ways that we never would have done before this crisis, is some of that. And obviously there's a lot of positive, and I could say more about that. Are you also feeling like it's an existential crisis, a financial crisis? I mean, clearly, those things are realities, but
yeah,
I think being able to use this as an opportunity to redefine some fundamental things will keep you from going down a sort of a spiral or negative rabbit hole. And what I mean by that is, if you're hung up on, this is how I defined my trajectory and my success and my sense of who I am, well, this isn't happening right now. So the opportunity is to, through conversations, through maybe seeking therapy or having that conversation with a friend that you ordinarily wouldn't have, creating spaces where you can unpack the challenges that are happening is really important. So I think the potential crisis is there, and I think it's just important for you to do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself and reach out for help. And I also think that there's opportunity in like a super disruptor like this that makes us question everything.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned like sort of the financial crisis. I saw something on the news the other day about Goldman. I think it was Goldman Sachs was predicting that this month 2.25 people will file for new unemployment benefits.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing throughout the industry massive layoffs.
Yeah.
And that is a real and scary thing for a lot of people. I don't know what to tell people about that. It's other than take care of yourself, like you say.
Well,
right?
It's so funny that you say that, because take care of yourself is one aspect. The other thing that I would suggest is come together, and maybe folks in this industry aren't used to this concept as much, but organize. What happens when. I don't know why the movie Gladiator is coming out at me. Flashing in front of me. Where for those who saw the movie with Russell Crowe, everybody's in it for themselves and trying to fight I think some kind of like scary lion or beast or something like that. And he's able to organize folks and say, look, this thing's gonna come after all of us if we do this alone. But if we work together, we can make this happen. So I think there's something about communicating, having more of a collectivist mindset when it comes to this that can help transform. And because if a few thousand people are in the same boat, or hundreds of thousands of people are in the same boat, but within an industry, let's just say even a few hundred or a few thousand, there's something to say for organizing and trying to create something new that will benefit everybody.
And it's interesting too, because prior to this week, I don't think I ever used the video portion of any of
Right.
these chat applications, but now I'm using it all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because we are so separated now, everybody's sort of making that leap to just go from voice only to the video piece too. I think that's just a sign that there's a need, to connect.
Absolutely. And two things come to mind is one being innovative and like you said, meeting the need. And the other is, and some people, inspirational speakers talk about this idea of like connect yourself to something that's bigger than yourself. I mean, right now, how many times do we see something going viral or something that is just, it comes out of somebody really wanting to share something that other people need in the moment. So I think there's something to say, and I think, and again, this is not my industry, so you both would know this better than I would, but I think there's evidence that you provide something, when you provide something that people need, it can just have exponential growth. And I think, you can have a similar mindset of just starting with not what's going to be best for me, even though that anxiety is real, but like, how can I be of service? And how can I use the tools around me to be of service? And I think new things might come out of that.
Dr. Sharma, question. Have you seen the documentary called Happy?
No, I have not.
Okay, cool. It's a documentary that's been out, I don't know, for 7, 8, 9 years. It's been a while. But to cut to the chase, the end of it is it looks at the science and analytics around what makes people happy, and they do this study around the globe, and they look at every different demographic, and whether you're rich or poor or whatever it is that whatever cultures that you belong to, whatever your religion is, they made it as independent as they could, and the net is there's 3 outcomes of what they feel like contribute to people's happiness. But the third one, which I think is awesome, and Chris and I talk about all the time, is the whole concept of altruism. Because during this time of COVID-19 and everything that's going on here, there's people like myself, and I know Chris as well, is like we're trying to figure out, how to help other people. I wish that I had a chance to contribute more in this situation. It turns out that my occupation is not, it's needed and it's required, but I am not an ER doctor or nurse or anyone related in the healthcare field that is making a tremendous sacrifice and an impact. But for what it's worth, I think the whole concept of altruism is kind of surfacing more and more in the time of crisis, which I think is super cool.
That's a great point. And I would say, again, the first thing is to just model it. Sometimes you don't even know it's within the realm of possibility until you see, Chris or Sandesh or someone else in the industry just doing that. And it's kind of like an aha moment, like, oh, yeah. And what it feels like to be on the receiving end of someone's altruism. And so I think just leading with that, or even doing some gesture, because again, it's not about altruistic people and non-altruistic people. You can focus more on the actions. All of us are capable of doing something selfish at times, something altruistic at times. So exercise that altruistic muscle a little more than you have in the past. And ironically, I think in this day and age, that has more currency.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that actually. So if you see, Chris has a lot of the data points here, but if you look at the collaboration tool vendors like Microsoft and Zoom and WebEx, Cisco WebEx and others, some of the things that they're doing, they're giving their technology to people for free, and that is their way to contribute back. And that's so awesome because they actually have something that we need right now, that our kids that are, maybe didn't have that capability, but now that are working from home, or, research labs, need a technology, right? This is a time not to be asking about how can I get my sales and how can I monetarily take advantage of this situation. This is an opportunity and that we can all say, my company or my organization or my skill sets fit this need. Mm-hmm. If this is valuable somewhere, how how can I contribute to that? And if we can get companies to continuously do that, I think that would be so awesome. It shows a great part of humanity and another side of America.
Absolutely. And if I could just do a personal appeal, I think if Disney Plus just made itself free, I could watch Mandalorian, which I've been wanting to for so long. So
there's a free subscription.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to mention that.
I think you get like a 30-day free kind of intro trial. But you know the thing, but that is an interesting thing, because on their front they did put Frozen and the Skywalker.
That's true.
With the last Star Wars movie up there early, right? I mean, and you're seeing that a lot of things coming that way early, and that's, quite frankly, some of the only distribution channels. I want to loop back to, because Sundesh was talking about, like, seeing this just opportunities for altruism, but I think one of the things that we've seen in the past through the industry is that there's in the IT space, it's a largely male-dominated field, right? And I think we see this male isolation, right? I mean, there's that old joke: I don't have friends. I have a wife, and she has friends, and they have husbands, right? I mean, as men in particular, we're very vulnerable to these sorts of things, and we don't speak up enough. And I think, to your point, that those acts of altruism, is there opportunity for us to identify people who maybe are at risk in that regard? And, what would you recommend for people for us to reach out to those people to try to help them or intervene in this situation where we see is just really challenging? Because there's a lot of bad habits too. And I know we've talked about the nature of bad habits, and I think you have an interesting perspective on that.
Absolutely. And you named such a huge factor, which is gender socialization. So, I was born and raised in this country, and even though some of these, the male socialization really overlaps across culture, being taught what is okay to express, what's not okay to express, the shame around demonstrating any type of vulnerability, the competitive streak, the need to sort of like take each other down a notch or raise ourselves a couple of notches. All of these things put us at a higher risk, which lead to statistics like men are more likely to complete a suicide versus do a suicide attempt, because we're just that much further along in terms of how desperate we feel. So I think in a time like this, especially, it's important for, speaking directly to the men who might need help, reach out to the various resources, and I'm sure this video podcast will provide some important resources. And also for you to reach out to a friend, and if you're a friend, maybe more than usual, hey, how are you doing? How are you coping with this? Being able to create a safe space for somebody to talk about this. And, as therapists, there's a lot that we do, but one important thing that we do, and it can happen also with family, can happen with friends, is to create a space to talk about something. So it's not just overwhelming you and acting upon you, but you actually can moderate how it impacts you by being able to talk about it with someone that you trust.
So kind of, if I understand what you're saying, is that, one of the best ways to sort of draw people out is to start sharing yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that kind of what you're saying?
But I think you make a good point, which is, for men, modeling vulnerability is really important. What quicker way to get somebody else to let their guard down than you showing that you can have your guard down. You can talk about your own feelings. So that's part of it. The other part I'm just saying is just to empathize, to reach out, to take that extra step to say, hey, how are you doing with all of this? Just that
in a non-judgmental sort of way.
Way. Absolutely. And again, if you find that, there might be a fear on our part, first of all, as men, to have these conversations. And secondly, like, what if I hear something that I'm not capable of handling on the other end? there's still ways you can be empathic and at the same time provide resources like, hey man, I want to be here as your friend. And I'm also thinking, if you don't mind, I'll send you a couple of links or I have a couple of people that you might, want to, talk to or something like that. So, but I think that first step of making it okay in our subculture, in our male subculture, or within this industry, the subculture, to make it more okay, especially at a time like this, to talk about how we're doing. I think that's an important step.
And anyway. Just by the way, my wife has been texting me that the state looks like just locked us all down.
Oh wow!
I told you, brother.
The same way that New York did.
Yeah, I think we're all we are all officially quarantined now. So there's that.
There's that.
So Sundays, you were just about to make a point before we took a break there.
You kind of just dropped a bomb on me.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
Let me just kind of compose myself for a second. No, it's funny, man. We were talking about that. We knew that was going to happen, right? I think no surprise there. Man, it's unfortunate. Yeah, going to what Rahul was saying about just males in this industry and just, we're in a male-dominated technology industry right now. And I talk to customers and partners and vendors and executives all the time. And one of the things that I find interesting is that guys don't want to talk about it. Like nobody. If you tell somebody, hey, man, I'm just, somebody asks you, how's your day going? What's the typical answer? It's great. Everything is
so
great.
busy.
How are you?
I'm so busy.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the answer that everybody gets. Oh, got so much to do. So busy.
So busy. Oh,
Why do we value that like that?
That answer is about to change.
For some, and not for others, right?
Right. That's true. That's true.
Because like right now, my wife is like she does healthcare consulting. I mean, this COVID-19 is just rocking her world, where for me on the technology space, there's been ebbs and flows, but it hasn't been a ton, right? So,
right.
Well, for me, I actually am, as the day job sort of piece of it is slowed down a bit, there's the opportunity to do more of this stuff, right?
Yeah,
Which is really exciting to me, right? And
yeah.
And I think it's a great way to stay connected with our clients and sort of the industry, while at the same time, feeling useful and making, I get to do, this is a great opportunity for me. And I'm kind of like a recluse to begin with. I'm kind of an introvert in that regard. So like, and I work from home. So this is not a big change for me. I'm in my happy place. I'm like, now it's like I got free reign to do the stuff I love to do here. This is cool, and I know I'm like an exception here, right? And I shouldn't, and this is a very serious thing, and I shouldn't, I feel a little bit guilty for, like this is working out for me, but
hey man, if you don't laugh about it, you're gonna cry, right? So just
true.
Well, it is what it is, dude. We got to get through it.
Well, that's certainly true, and I will also say, it's important to not generalize your situation to other people. On the one hand, on the other hand, people that are experiencing that existential crisis I was talking about earlier might like to hear, and they all of a sudden they might want to come to you about, well, how is it that you've been finding so much meaning, or this hasn't been as much as a disruption for you? They might want to hear from how this is survivable to you. So you might have some tips and tools for folks.
Yeah, no, completely. And that's why, like with this male-dominated, industry that we are in with technology, to bring it back to that conversation, I tell Chris this all the time. I talk to so many sales guys, especially, sales leaders, in all different companies, big, large, small, startups, whatever it might be. And there's no doubt about it, man. Like I'd get these calls of, well, I'm at this new company, I thought it was going to be X, but it's actually Y, I'm out of this place, right? You hear a lot of that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, this is not a good place for me. My number's too high. There's no way I can meet it, blah, 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 blah. Usually almost never about the technology and almost always about the company. But it's been hard because, a lot of these guys are my friends, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could help you. Like I wish that you would see what I see, which is it's not just you. Yes, you have a shit sandwich right now for sure. But there's a bunch of people that do.
Yes.
It's like we're kind of misery loves company a little bit, and that's what's so interesting. Like, I'm telling you, half of my conversations with customers and partners and such it's like so much of it is like, man, this shit's crazy right now. Like how am I going to make my number? How are we going to what technologies are selling right now? Customers, I have a lot of empathy for customers right now because customers are being told to change their business. They're being told go from the way we've been, business as usual to now use the whole digital transformation to create a new business and make us agile and all these kinds of things. And I think that's just really, really, really hard, and it's almost like we're putting people into a situation where we all know the odds. Yeah, the odds are of them being successful are very, very low. How can you build a culture when the odds are stacked against everybody?
Well, and Rahul, this is an interesting point too. One of the things that we've seen in this industry, to Sundesh's point, is sort of this transformational aspect to it. One of the things we see a lot of is like CIOs are struggling to figure this out, right? Because in 2008, everybody got the financial crisis. Everybody became financially focused, right? So CIOs were all about just cutting costs, right? Now they're about to be the transformational ones. And one of the things that we see is that there's sort of this challenge of ego, right? Where you feel like, well, I'm the CIO, I'm the guy who's supposed to have all the answers, right? So, I don't have answers, so I got to kind of fake it. And then like everybody's, like running scared, and I think, sometimes CIOs get really distant from all the workers because they feel like if they go in front of everybody, they're not going to have the answer. And it's really the answer is to like leverage your people and listen to opinions and get a bigger and broader pool of input, right? But how would you recommend for people to sort of overcome some of those challenges of feeling insecure about where they are, even when they're the top dog, right? So I'm going to cut it there. A cliffhanger for next one. If you like what you saw, hit like, subscribe, and click on that notification button to get more notifications, in particular for part 2. And I'll see you soon.